No. But it seems the way with Monday morning, we get saturated with breakfast.
Also,
Yeah.
Yeah, so
That makes
that-
sense.
that-
waiting for-
That's about
I not tell you, okay. More interest.
It's what cultural program.
Yeah.
It's like or even ceremonial lecture is good. No, like
I will make a ceremonial.
we have some, IMS.
Kind of. I feel like
Yes. Yes.
So,
Hello.
good morning and welcome everyone. Today we are starting the special lecture series for the data science and yeah, good morning all of you. So we are starting today the special lecture series of data science and big data analysis, advanced data assimilation. So I'll pass on the mic to director to welcome the gathered.
Yeah. Thank you very much for this lecture, series of lectures on data science and AI. So next class so that more people. First lecture, I encourage more people to join. Actually, Professor Varahan has been interacting in the last few months how to do this, and we are also having a series of lectures at INCOIS, Hyderabad. And so we will begin this. I think this is a very interesting opportunity. And AI is now being used in many weather and climate applications. But the problem is really non-linear, some of the process. And now with data becoming available, satellite data and the analysis, I think there are opportunities to understand. Because some of the process, even the models, climate weather models, how the clouds are developing, how they are growing, are in the ocean mixing process. These are all very tough, really challenging problems. So maybe large amount of data is there. Some of that we can probably better represent these processes. That's what is the understand. Although this AI is a kind of a black box now, people are using it. We really don't understand. Some input it's throwing a lot of output, but how to make some sense out of it, how to use it efficiently in the models. I think that is one of the key challenges. And I'm sure Professor Varahan will enlighten us in his lectures, his applications. And so you're also talking about data assimilation in this one.
Depending on the interest, we can.
Okay. Okay. So with these few words, I welcome Professor Varahan, and I would like to encourage all students and youngsters really take advantage. And he's a very learned scholar, a very experienced professor. Should really take benefit of these things, of these lectures. So with these few words, I welcome you, sir. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you. This is the one. This is just. This is what is this one going to find out. I can do. Good morning, Dr. Krishna. I have visited IITM a couple of times. I'm very happy to be here. I'd like to start by thanking Partha and Vinu for making wonderful arrangements for our stay. I hope we'll have fun-filled 5 days, 2 lectures a day, and I'd like to encourage interactions. In today's talk, I'm going to talk about the broad umbrella of data science. First, I'm going to argue that data science is as old as it's new. Data science is one of the oldest of the sciences we all have come to know without calling it data science. So the title data science is probably the package, but the contents is what I'm going to append. I'm going to give examples to argue that data science is one of the oldest of the sciences that has propelled the growth in almost all the sciences. Much of what we know in physical sciences have their beginnings in astronomy. Am I audible to all of you? Hello? Yeah, thank you. Thanks to the Herculean efforts of pioneers like Copernicus, Galileo, Kepler, Newton, and all these people, what they do, they all did data science. That's what I'm going to argue first. Observations are collected over decades and meticulously analyzed to formulate the laws of nature, and that's what they did. So what is data science in general? From data to model. Models have unknown parameters. Then you use the very same data that led to the model to also estimate the parameters of the model. What the parameters of the models are estimated, we call it the assimilated model. Assimilated model can then be used for prediction. So what are the 4 pillars of data science? Collection of data, modeling the data. Depending on the nature and the type of the model, you have to estimate the state and or parameters. Once the state and parameters are estimated, the estimated value when used in the model they're called assimilated model, and you run the assimilated model forward in time, and that becomes a forecast calculation. So collection of data, model building, estimation, and prediction, in our view, are the 4 pillars of data science. So if you look at data science from this perspective, data science is pretty old. For example, the heliocentric system. There's no mathematical theory that he used. He went from geocentric to heliocentric. Of course, he was punished by the contemporary church for that new view, which went against the beliefs of the church, but we all know that's the truth. The loss of Kepler. To me, Kepler was one of the earliest of the data scientists we have come to know. He had collected and analyzed data worthy of 30 years. And in those days, they simply had a handheld telescope. They did not have a paper pencil as we know today. And he analyzed this volume of data. To Kepler, the volume of data that he had was the big data of his time. I would like to argue every data is a big data of its era. Every computer is a supercomputer of its era, because that's the best we could have done. So Kepler, by his ingenuity alone, analyzed this 30+ years of human collected data to come up with the 4 laws that we all study in our first course in physics, that planets revolve around the sun in elliptical orbit. The sun is at the foci, the chord joining the foci, one of the focus on and a point on the ellipse, so equal areas and equal intervals of time. All these laws were the result of what can be called data mining. Data mining is a big part of data science. So I'm trying to develop the big umbrella of what's called data science by giving examples of what's in it. Law of gravitation. It's all said that one fine afternoon, he was lying under the sun, the apple came down. He asked the question, why did it come up? Why did it come down instead of going up? That's a beautiful story for a 5th grader. But Newton was standing on the shoulders of giants like Galileo, Kepler. And that gave him enough of the fodder to be able to come up with the universal law of gravitation. Galileo has already proven that a ball and a feather came to the earth at the same rate. So the notion of gravity was very well known. He generalized that notion of gravity to the universal law of gravitation among planetary systems. So within the context of physical sciences, I would say that these are some of the earliest examples of data mining. Data mining is a part of data science. So what is data mining? Data mining is a process of extracting the structure of patterns that are inherent in the data or observations. These patterns give clues to the data generating process. So the goal of data mining is to understand this data generating process. That's very important. If I can generate the data that Mother Nature produces in my laboratory, then I can say the model that I use in my laboratory has captured, if not the entire property of Mother Nature, but large part of the properties of information. So one of the aims in data mining, which is a part of data science, is to be able to understand the data generating process. That is the underlying mechanism that generates data. Since the motion of the celestial object inherently follows certain laws, the early pioneers with their hard work and ingenuity could discover laws that laid the foundations of physical sciences and engineering as we now know today. Now let's fast forward. Now we have a confluence of several technologies, sensor technology. I can measure anything and anything. Whatever I measure, I can transmit wirelessly, JPEGs. Whatever be the amount of data that comes in, I can store them in large storage devices, large banks of terabyte storage devices. Then we have computers, petaflop power that can help to process this data. So it's the combination of the technology, sensor, communication, storage, and computing technology that has revived the interest in data science today. But the theme of data science, the theme of data mining has not changed. So today, data mining, which is part of data science, includes physical sciences, biological sciences, finance, banking, sports, and creation, just to name a few. I would like to come back to data mining a bit later, but I would like to go back to early days of astronomy. So Newton has realized that the planets revolve around the sun. The planets also revolve around the sun in elliptical orbit. An ellipse is a static model, but he wanted to be able to capture the position of planets around the sun at every instance in time. He knew the tools at that time were not sufficient enough to be able to capture that. So he, along with Leibniz, invented calculus, differential, integral, differential equations. Once the notion of a differential equation was introduced, they were able to capture the motion of a planet around the sun. It's a second order ordinary differential equation. So once I'm able to capture the position of a planet around the sun using a deterministic model, the potential for forecast became very clear. Today, we can predict the lunar and solar eclipse for the next 100 years with absolute precision. And that's one of the major achievements of data mining and model building as early as Newton's time. So once the models are available, the potential for forecast prediction became very clear. Now I would like to pull in another strand to tell the story of how broad and how general the data science is all about. We all know GAUSS. GAUSS was in the early stages. At that time, there was a problem. Astronomers were looking at a planetoid called Cirrus. It went out of sight. People did not know where it went, at what bearing it will come, so that they can start observing its position again. So this young man took up this challenge. He stood on the shoulders of Kepler. He knew this planetoid was moving around the planet, the mother planet in its orbit of elliptical orbit. An ellipse in a plane is a second-degree polynomial in two variables, ax squared plus bxy plus cy squared, dx, dy, and f. There are 6 coefficients. He said this second-degree polynomial represents infinitely many ellipses for each choice of the parameters a, b, c, d, e, f. I'm interested in estimating the particular ellipse followed by this planetoid that went out the side. So what did he do? He fell back. So he combined Kepler's theory of elliptical motion. He also took all the positions just before it disappeared, and he asked himself the following question. If only I could estimate the 6 parameters using the very same data that Kepler used to prove it is running in an elliptical orbit, I should be able to pin down the values of the 6 parameters A, B, C, D, E, F. That he translated the problem into one of estimating the parameters of a static model using the very same data. Please understand, the data has already been used by Kepler to make one conclusion. Now he wanted to take it back to the higher level to estimate the parameters. So by combining the model with the observation, he then created the first assimilated model within the history of physical sciences. What is assimilation here? Assimilation is the process of estimating the parameters of the model. So once he made the estimates, he then fell back again on Kepler's laws that a cord swept equal areas and equal intervals of time. He knew the time at which it went out of sight. So he traced the ellipse to be able to predict when it will come, at what bearing. Sure enough, it became a very successful prediction. So this aspect of data assimilation involves estimation of unknown parameters of the model in question. I'm going to argue a little bit later the process of going from data to model, the process of estimating the parameters of the model. These two, mathematically speaking, they are called inverse problems. If there is an inverse problem, there must also be a direct problem. I will come back to that distinction a bit later. Let's continue the story. So Gauss in 1801 laid the foundations, and he invented the method of least squares. Least square methods even today is a workhorse of the estimation industry. The so-called 4D war method, the so-called 3D war method that people in meteorology, in geosciences, they use, they're all predicated on the well-known least square principle. Yeah, that's one of the best known techniques for estimation, and that was invented by Gauss, much like calculus differential equations were invented by Newton and Leibniz around that time. So Gauss not only invented the least squares, but he also did some fundamental work. He was to fit the observation of cirrus to be able to estimate. He found these observations had errors. So he wanted to model the observation errors, because at that time he invented the bell-shaped curve, which we call now the distribution today. So least squares and the bell-shaped curve for the distribution of observation errors are two of the most fundamental discoveries that Gauss made this connection, and those two still continues to dominate the development of models, estimation of parameters of the model, in particular in data science. So then Gauss made a successful prediction of the bearing and the reappearance of the lost object, and it was a great success at that time. Now, prediction. Well, so once I have an assimilated model running the model forward in time, that's called forward problem. So in data science, going from data to model is an inverse problem. Estimating the parameters of the model is an inverse problem. Once we get an assimilated model, running the model forward to generate prediction, that's a forward problem. We'll come to that a little bit more later. So what is data assimilation? Data assimilation is the process of fusing models with data. I was told that you all had a workshop not too long ago on this topic. So model, okay, now let's come back. Mother Nature conducts her dance the way she wants it. Models of our perception of she conducts her dance. We often may not understand Mother Nature very well. So there's always a gap between what Mother Nature does and what we think she's doing. How do you bring the model closer to Mother Nature? Models in general represents an infinite class of objects. For example, if you say a quadratic equation ax squared plus bx plus c, it's not one equation, it is millions of equations. Why? A, B, C are real parameters. Each of these real parameters can take infinitely many values. So when I say a quadratic equation, the quadratic equation is not one, but many. 3x squared plus 2x minus 7. That's a specific quadratic equation. So I would like to be able to distinguish between a model and an instantiation of the model. Ax squared plus bx plus c is a model. 3x squared plus 5x minus 7 is an instantiation of the model. So what does estimation gives rise to? Estimation gives rise to picking a particular instantiation of the model by estimating the parameters, and that's exactly what Gauss did. So by combining the model with the data, we get a specialized model. That's an instantiation of the model. That's called assimilated model. This assimilated model is a good for creating forecast or prediction. One of the standard tools for fusion of models with data is based on the method of least squares. The need for prediction is all pervasive. Why do we do all these things? Because we want to be able to predict. Our life depends on predictions of various types. Let me give you a couple of examples. We want to predict the path of a hurricane, tornado. There are several models thereof. For example, hurricane called typhoons. On the day we landed in Madras, there was a, I forget the name of the cyclone. It hit Madras. It had formed south of Andaman. So forecasters wanted to see whether it will go to Orissa, Bengal area, or Visakhapatnam, or Madras, Sriharikota area, or Rameshwaram area. So they want to be able, they can view, they would like to be able to predict where it will. We can't stop the hurricane, but we can give warnings to save lives. Oftentimes, you may not be able to save property. So one of the fundamental tasks in geophysical prediction is to predict moment of severe weather. The crime scene investigation. We are not the only one who is doing data assimilation and data science. A crime has happened, detectives come, they collect data to be able to model how the crime may have been committed. Who are the group that are capable of doing this? So every crime scene investigation, they always go from data to model to solving the crime. NTSB is called National Transportation Safety Board. It's an agency within the United States. Their only job is to be able to go wherever there is an aircraft failure. They collect the part of the aircraft that has failed or that has crashed. They try to rebuild the plane to see why the plane crashed, to be able to ascertain reasons for the crash so that they can tell the manufacturers to be able to avoid such crashes in the future. So again, from debris data to trying to rebuild the plane to the cost of the failure. Again, data to model. Well, every government, I think yesterday or day before yesterday was the budget season for the finance minister was presenting the budget. The budget, to develop a budget, I need to know how many crores of rupees I will have at the beginning of the year to be able to distribute. So before the budget is developed, somebody within the government has to estimate the amount of tax revenues that will be available using various streams, and that input goes into the budget development process. So within the finance department, there are people whose only job is to be able to predict the amount of revenue in various sources from agricultural sector, industrial sector, by way of taxes, so on and so forth. So they need to predict everything. Last but not the least, medical diagnosis. You don't feel well, you go to the doctor. What do? You start talking to the doctor. I still talk. The doctor collects data from you. Sometimes doctor would say, well, take this tablet for 3 days, you should be all right, and we are all right. But sometimes the oral description may not be enough. You may ask for an X-ray. You may ask for a blood test. You may ask for a CAT scan. To be able to supplement the available data to be able to decide what is the diagnosis. So what happens in every doctor's office is from data to model. The doctor knows what the perfect anatomy ought to be from the anatomy book that he studied when he was in college. Now, here's the particular symptoms. What has caused the symptoms from data to model? So we are not the only one geoscientists doing data science, data mining, data to model. Different people in different walks of life, almost every day, do similar things. I just want you to be able to expand the thought process as to what data mining is all about, what data science is all about. Talk to a medical doctor, talk to anybody who you work with, so you can see how they tend to apply data science. Now come to the mathematical aspects of direct and inverse problem. I have a model, I have an input, I have an output. If you give me the model and the input I can compute the output. That's called a forward problem. When you are in college, you always learn how to solve forward problems. Given a differential equation and an initial condition, how to compute the solution. But when you come to work, the IITM, they always ask you to solve the inverse problem. So what's an inverse problem? I give the model and the output, find the input that led to the output for this given model. I have a model and the output, find, that's right. I have a model and the output, find the input. I have the input output, identify the model. I hope you're all with me now. I have input output, identify the model. What is that? That's a regression problem. For example, everybody must have done this exercise in the first course in physics. How do you determine the acceleration due to gravity? Take a pendulum, measure the length, let it run 10 times, get the average period. T is equal to 2 pi square root of L over G. You take the square of every side. You can express G's as a function of T square and L. It's a line that's supposed to go to the origin. The slope of the line is related to what you are interested in estimating. But that's a very simple exercise. Based on the length and the period, I'm going to determine G, the acceleration due to gravity. Theoretically, that's the inverse problem you saw. That's a regression problem. So, model to data is a data mining. That's an inverse problem. So, what is an example of a problem where all these are bundled together? Time series analysis. In time series analysis, what is that you are given? You are given a collection of data, the daily average temperature in Pune, the daily maximum, the monthly rainfall. You are not given anything else. So from the data, you are supposed to build a model. Models are based either on causality or correlation. Most of the models in physics and engineering are causality-based models. If there's a force, there's acceleration. Every body continues in its state of rest or state of motion unless compelled by the external force, the first law of Newton. That's causality. In the case of time series analysis, there's no causality. Even though there's an underlying cause why things change, that's not given to me. I'm just given a bunch of numbers, the IBM subclass, the number of deaths in the road, daily maximum temperature, monthly unemployment. These are all time series data. So what do we need to do? Since there is no causality, I have to depend on what's called correlation. So based on the correlation that is inherent in the observed data, I have to guess my model. The models are from Arima family, autoregressive moving average family. And then you try to estimate the parameters of the model. Once the parameters of the model are estimated, then you make the predictions. So in my view, time series analysis is a single course that embeds everything that is the basis for data science. Model to data, estimation, prediction. So the three pillars of data science: data mining, data assimilation, and prediction. Data mining is going from data to model. Data assimilation is from model estimation. Prediction is the last problem. So data, model, estimation, prediction. Now I have been talking mostly about Western science, but I want you to know, in India, in the ancient days, data science was at speed. I'm just going to give you some examples to think about. In Indian setup, we divide times into yugas. Ramayana was in Treta Yuga, Mahabharata in Dwapara Yuga, we are living in Kali Yuga. It is said in Valmiki Ramayana that at the time of birth of Lord Rama, the 5 grahas were at their peak. So how did Valmiki knew the positions of all planets? I want you to just think about it. Admit. You can read for yourself. So he knew all the 9 planets. He knew how to read which planet in which position. Admit. What wonders. One wonders. Next, great astronomers of Kali Yuga. Ramayana happened centuries ago. in our own time, in Kaliuga, Aryabhatta, he knew that was spherical. He knew that it was revolving around the sun, and he also had estimated the length of the year is roughly 365 days. Then there are a whole host of astronomers. I'm sure you all know many of them. You must have heard of all of them. So you can see at Aryabhatta's time, data science was at the peak. What's the difference? Why we did not know? They did not do it in theorem, lemma, proofs, and other things. They essentially stated in the form of slokas in Sanskrit. They were buried. Only recently these things have been coming out. These things have been coming out. So you can see that the data science was very highly specialized branch of pursuit within Indian subcontinent, even in this bigger Kaliuga. Unfortunately, I don't read Sanskrit, but there are lots of Sanskrit scholars have translated them into English. The point I want to make here is that the earlier examples of data science also began in astronomy, but in India, data science had its beginning even earlier than the Western world. Now I would like to come back to models. So we talked about one of the aims is to build models. I am coming from applied mathematics, so I'm interested in all kinds of models. So I'm going to tell you what are the types and variety of models that could be of genetic interest in data science. Models can be based on causality or correlation. I already talked about that. Model can be explicit and implicit. The model that the ordinary differential equation that describes the motion of a planet around the sun is an explicit model. What's an implicit model? The neural network that helps to predict the rainfall in Pune. I'm sure there are lots of papers that are here. That implicit model. We can make it work. We don't know why it works. We don't know how it works. Model can be dynamic or static. Model can be deterministic or stochastic. Again, the model that describes the motion of a planet on the sun is deterministic. All the time series models are stochastic models. Inherently, they are stochastic. Model can be linear or nonlinear. Model can be in discrete time or in continuous time. Time series data is inherently discrete time. Daily average, daily maximum, monthly unemployment. But the pressure distribution, the temperature distribution, the humidity distribution, they're continuous. Some models work in continuous space, other models work in continuous time. Most of the models in meteorology, in geosciences, they work in the three-dimensional space and time. That's why Z and T. But what is a discrete space model? In probability theory, we have the so-called Markov chain. That's called a finite state Markov chain. They operate in discrete state and discrete time. So you can see the model characteristics can be one of many. I can have a causality-based explicit model given by an ordinary differential equation, which is deterministic, which is nonlinear, which operates in continuous time and continuous space. So if you give me a model, I can pick all the properties from this list to describe what specific subclass of model that of interest to me. Now I come to organization of data. What are the ways in which I can organize data in data science? There are only 4 different ways in which to organize data. One is time series. I already talked about it. Another is the spatial data. What is the current distribution of COVID in the state of Maharashtra, in India, across the world? It is the distribution at a given time. That's a spatial distribution. The next one is a spatial temporal. What is the monthly average temperature across Maharashtra? Monthly across Maharashtra, spatial temporal. The last one represents the data matrix. What is the data matrix? In many aspects of AI, data science, we deal with this 4th form of data called data science. X is a matrix. Each xi is a column vector of size d. There are n columns. So there are n columns, each column is of size d. You can think of each of the n columns to be n points in a d-dimensional space. So what is an object? An object could be human. I want to give you an example to fix your ideas of the data matrix. Humans versus animal. Among humans, men, women. Among humans, he's a East European, he's an Indian, he's a Chinese, he's a Japanese, he's an African. We all know how to distinguish. In an airport, in a train station, in a bus station, oh gosh, he looks like a foreigner. Don't you say that? So what does it mean? I want to be able to distinguish object, an object to be a human being. So what are the variables that we want to measure to be able to distinguish human beings? Height, weight, skin color, hair color, eye color, feet properties. So that's what it is. I try to define each human being by a set of features, which is D large. So I have a collection of measurements of D human beings. I would like to be able to distinguish them. Are there people with similar features and how they classify? The object of classification is fundamental to data science. The input data to the classification problem is always in the form of a matrix. The matrix is a rectangular matrix. The columns represent the object. The rows represent the features or measurements. Every object is measured across the same set of features to be fair. So I'm going to have to compare and group them into similar groups so that I can classify objects into classes. So that's the fourth form of data. So no matter which area that you are working in, when you consider data science, there are only 4 different ways of organizing data. For example, in economics, we are having a spatial temporal evolution. What do they say? State by state, I have agricultural products, rice, wheat, and so on and so forth. And every season, these agricultural products are being produced. So state by state, how much bushels of each of the products are being produced across all the products so that the government in Delhi can sum up the agricultural output, the industrial output. That's a kind of a spatial temporal data represented in the form of matrix. Almost all the problems in economics can be represented by the spatial temporal evolution. So I talked about 7 different features of the model. I talked about 4 different types of organizations of data, and it's a combination of models and data that data science is involved in. So what are the methods of data science? So historically, we have been using several methods, and many of the methods are known to many of us. Even though the problem may be different, the tools have lots of similarities. So I'm now going to tell you some of the nomenclature that has gone by. Statistical estimation theory. For example, one of the standard problems in statistics is as follows. I have a coin that falls head to the probability P, tail with the probability 1 minus P. I don't know P, estimate P. It's a very typical problem that most course in statistics. So what is that? I don't know P. I want to learn P. I want to estimate P. And how do I collect data? I collect data by tossing. The tosses are independent. The tosses are identical from an identically distributed binomial variable. So given a bunch of young independent identically distributed sample, how do I estimate P? That's how statisticians formulated the problem. If you consider this the P unknown I'm going to learn, it's a learning problem. Learning problems are of interest in AI. So where AI problems originally sprung up, in space, I'm trying to estimate that much. But in statistics, they didn't call it AI problem. Knowing the unknown is called learning in human experience. I learned to ride the bike. I learned to cook lasagna. I learned to fly. I'm learning new language. If knowing unknown is learning, if learning is a part of AI, many things that happens around us, I can call it. that are not, we have chosen to call it AI. In fact, the president of the American Statistical Association, she gave a talk some years ago. She said that the title of the talk, "Let us own data science." These computer scientists and other data scientists, so-called data scientists, they are coming to start a new science called data science. But we, as statisticians, have been working in statistics, developing data science. Without calling it data science, we call it data analytics. We call it data analysis, multivariate data analysis. That's what statisticians have been calling it. So what is that in a name? The rose smells the same by whatever name you call. Shakespeare, Romeo and Juliet. So I would like to be able to tell you that while there may be different ways of characterizing, so the underlying themes are very well known to us. They are not known under the name data science. They are not known under the name data mining. They are not known under the name machine learning or AI. But the spirit of learning runs deep in many of these. So statistical estimation theory is one such. Kalman filtering to assimilate and forecast. I'm sure many of you in geosciences know more about that. Multivariate regression analysis and statistics. I have given input-output onto the model. That's what multivariate statistical analysis is all about. Data reduction, PCA. Okay, why data reduction? We try to collect. We are steadily going from data sparse to data rich data. As the density of the data increases, so does the correlation. So what's the idea here? I have large volumes of data, but they are highly correlated. Processing large volumes of correlated data doesn't give you more information. It costs you more money. So what's the fundamental question? How do I find the intrinsic dimensionality of a data set? How do I find the intrinsic characteristics of data? Why? If I can do a pre-processing trying to reduce the data to the intrinsic properties, then the subsequent algorithms don't have to spend too much money. Correlated data, can you reduce it to a small number of independent data? That's what data reduction is all about. Classification, clustering. Artificial neural networks are meant for doing the classification, pattern recognition. Support vector machine, deep neural networks, they're all classes of objects, methodologies. Have been in development for the past 60, 70 years. They all, we think, belong to the realm of AI. But the underlying theme that statisticians have been involved in, and the underlying theme of this, two different from each other. Association rule, decision rules, probabilistic networks, genetic algorithms, random fields. So these are some of the terminologies with which we have come to know different areas of activity. But I'm more interested in the underlying thematics in terms of not the label, but the underlying mathematical problem, the unification or the unity among the methodology. That's something I would like you to know. So summary. Data mining seeks to uncover the structure of patterns in the data so that we can summarize the intrinsic properties of data generating process. The goal of data assimilation is to fit the model to data. The fitter model had a better predictive power, and we have already seen the data mining, data assimilation, and prediction forms part of the continuum. So somebody calls it data science, somebody calls it predictive science. So you can see lots of terminologies floating around. Fundamentally, this is what we do in predictive science, in data science, in AI, in multivariate statistics. If estimating the unknown is learning, we all do learning every day. We all do learning every day. You enter a class, you come out of the class. Are you the same person? If you're the same person, nothing has happened to you, right? But if you listen to the class, if you're attentive to the class, your neurons are going to be rewired. If the neurons are rewired after every lecture, you are not the same person. That's a transformation, that's a learning process. You learn something after the lecture that you did not know before the lecture. So our learning continues. And AI and ML are mathematical ways of trying to characterize how humans learn, how to replicate human learning and so on. And I know we started a little late, I don't want to propagate the delay. Maybe we will stop right here and we can start the second session and reset the clock. And our plan was to start the second lecture at 11:30. I will start from where I left. I just don't want to propagate the delay through. And shall I say we will take a break and then we'll meet at 11:30 sharp?
Yeah.
Yeah. And do you also want to make an announcement about tomorrow where we are going to be meeting?
Yeah.
Yeah. Please do.
So today we don't find lab only, so probably we will meet in the Alibata or tomorrow. That's the one thing. And so we'll meet here at 11:30 after a short break. So there's a key arranged outside. Key arranged outside, so everyone can have key and come back at 11:30.
Yeah, we'll meet here today and tomorrow morning we'll meet in Aribetta. Then the smaller classroom will be much more cozier and we can interact in close quarter. Thank you all. See you soon. How are you? I'm trying to I know, we don't have to worry about points. Like Rajagopal. Yeah, yeah. Remember? a lot of money. Please, please cooperate, but there's no point in delaying this. And we'll start sharp at 10 in the Aryabhata Hall. Now that we have seen, am I audible to everybody? Sir, there's a lot of seats, you can come to the front. Those of you who are sitting in the back, I would love to see your faces. Please come. I hope I'm not imposing on you, but there are lots of sofa here. Come on down. Be a VIP. It says VIP, come on. When the VIPs are there, you may not have a chance to sit, but today is the chance. Everybody is a VIP. Please come down and sit at the front. I'm now going to quickly see, there are takers for VIP. Come on down, please. Be a VIP one day. Still, they don't want to take a VIP. Please come to the front. It would be nice.
There is actually table. Not there for VIP. You take advantage of.
Sure, thank you. Now I'm going to quickly review the evolution in AI. In the previous talk, we talked about the evolution of data science. I hope I gave you a good perspective of what data science is all about. Today, in this second talk, I'm going to give a historical view of the evolution of AI. Growth in AI is largely tied to the development of digital computers. I don't know how many of you have heard of the famous British scientist Alan Turing. Turing was the one who was responsible for breaking the Nazi code that led to the defeat of Nazi war machine. He was a genius. He also invented the notion of what's called Turing machine. To many of us in computer science, Turing machine is the model of computers. So there are two types of models for computing. One is called the Turing machine model. Another is called the RAM model, random access memory model. What is a Turing machine model? It can read, write, compute. The only thing in Turing machine was the memory is in the form of a cake. It's a sequential memory. RAM, on the other side, it can do everything. It can read, write, compute, but the memory is called the random access device. Thanks to the technology of random access memory, I can pick any part of the memory with the same delay. So except for the delay in accessing the data, either in the sequential memory like the tape or random access memory, both are theoretically equal in terms of its power. So Turing machine. Turing in 1931, he wrote a paper talking about how computers can think. So he was talking about a conversation with a computer to be able to mimic human intelligence. That paper is still a thought-provoking paper. I would very much suggest that when you get a chance, please read through that. Barring the technical jargon, the idea that he can converse with a computer intelligently was one of the earlier starts of AI. But coming back to the AI as we now know today, Macaulay and Kurt, they developed the first stored program digital computers called ENIAC. John Backus at IBM developed Fortran compilers. In 1956, the first operating system was created. High-level programming languages began. Lisp, C, C++. Today, there are well over 250 computer programming languages. I grew up in Fortran 2, Fortran 4, in the mid to late 60s and early 70s. Alan Turing, if human using logical reasoning process information and make decision, why can't machine do the same? So he promoted the idea of the logical view of intelligence. Anybody who can argue intelligently, we say he's right. Anybody who can argue logically, we say he's bright. So he thought that one of the basic foundations for human intelligence is the method of logical reasoning. So he promoted that idea. Samuel in 1950 developed the first program to play checkers. We all know why game playing is considered to be one of the intelligent activities. You probably say, my boy is only 6 years old and he has beaten me in chess. My girl is only 10 years old. I can't even play bridge with her. She beats me hands down. Game playing is one of the fundamental ways in which we exhibit our logical reasoning. So game playing has been part of one of the test bed for trying to mimic intelligent activity. So right from the early days, artificial intelligence community, if I want to be able to mimic humans, I should be able to mimic humans in game playing. So game playing became one of the early points of view to prove the ability to make programs that exhibit properties similar to human beings. Newell, Shaw, Simon, they developed the logical theorist following the lead from Turing. The logical theorist, what does it mean? Every theorem in mathematics is proven by deductive logic. In mathematics, we have two notions. One is induction, another is deduction. Induction is from going from samples to theory. Deduction is from theory to samples. Deductive logic. So we prove theorems. Okay, this is how we do. When we discover results, nobody thinks of a theorem. When you discover, our discovery process is largely inductive. I got an example. This example shows certain behavior which I have not seen. So I may have found something new. I want to examine, expand. I see several examples. Then I say, hey, I have found the truth. And I would like to be able to combine all this truth into one theorem and then start proving the theorem top down. So we discovered bottom up, but when we write papers, we develop things top down. If you tell a story how you invented certain things, the editors won't be interested. They always want to have a detective development. You write papers. So induction, deduction. So if I can make machine to mimic logical reasoning, I should be able to prove theorems. So when I was in graduate school, automatic theorem proving was one of the major subjects. Many theorems can be proven automatically by logical deduction, inductive, logical deduction, deductive theory. And Herbert Simon, I don't know how many of you know, he's an economist at Carnegie Mellon. He got a Nobel Prize in economics, but he was one of the early founders of AI. The term AI was coined in the first workshop in Dartmouth by McCarthy and Minsky, two of the giants in modern era of AI. Feigenbaum introduced the notion of an expert system. Look at that now. Game playing program, logical theorist viewpoint of AI, expert system. If you have software, if a piece of software can do what an expert does, then we call it an intelligent system. He called it expert system. Now you can see the different terminologies coming to refer to these kinds of activities. Two competing approaches to AI. One is the ability to manipulate symbols by machines based on formal rules of logic. That became a reality. Automatic theorem proving, game playing programs. Game playing is always logical. For example, I'm given a board position. How many moves I can make? If I make this move, if the opponent moves this way, then I make a move this way. So in intelligent programs to play chess, generally anticipate 6 or 7 moves like that. So the game playing program, to make one move, the machine makes a tree. Here's the board position. I have 15 choices to make a move. if I make this 15 choices, each choice, my opponent can make 10 choices. Then I can make, then he can make, then I can make. So every game playing program essentially develops an exhaust, and the tree tells you all possible choices. At the end of the seventh move, you have a tree, a lot of leaves, and then you evaluate the value of each of these leaves with respect to your ultimate goal of winning the game. You attach a numerical value. Then what is that you want to do? I want to maximize. I want to make a move now that will lead me to success at the end of the seventh move. That will ultimately help me to win the game in the end. So that's what's called the look ahead strategy. The deeper you can expand, the better your decisions will be. I'm sure all of you know, IBM had a project called Deep Blue. They spent about $15 million to develop the software on the top of the hardware that they already built. Kasparov won once against Deep Blue. Deep Blue had beaten over Kasparov once. The third game was in a tie. So we have achieved tremendous improvement in game playing, especially in chess. Chess is supposed to be one of the tough games. So the ability to manipulate using logical arguments to develop this tree structure. Tree-based algorithms is the fundamental aspects of search. And we all do that in everyday life. Given my salary, do I need to buy a house or rent an apartment? Do I need to buy a car or a two-wheeler? Do I need this? Do I need that? Your grandma at home did that every day. She didn't even go to college. So this notion of being able to logically use the reasoning in the form of develop a tree to make appropriate decisions is very human. It's very human. And that's what the decision tree mechanisms in AI, many of you may have known of, is based on. And that's what gameplay in AI is based on. The second one is logical theories. Second one is biologically inspired approach to mimic the neurons in the human brain. In the brain, every activity is supposed to take place in a local area. Every local area is supposed to have tens of thousands of neurons. The neurons collaborate to be able to make an action possible. So if I move my hand, there's a group of neurons helps me. If I talk, every activity is controlled by synchronization of certain groups of neurons in certain parts of the brain. And what's a neuron? A neuron is called a relaxation oscillator. You know, the pendulum is a harmonic oscillator. What is a relaxation oscillator? The neuron gets charged. The charge rises as a ramp function. When it gets a threshold, boom, it discharges. So the ramp function is the way in which neurons operate. So the oscillations of neurons are called relaxation oscillators. So how can I combine a collection of neuronal relaxation operators to be able to mimic biologically driven approaches? That's a second approach. The ultimate challenge is learning, the ability to generalize. For example, you can get a chef degree in less than a year. I become a chef. I will study. So when you are learning for a chef, they tell you to cook certain things, and you have to eat the meat you cook, right? What are the best way to test what you cook? You better eat what you cooked. But if you cook only the thing that you learned when you are a chef, nobody will employ you. When you get out of it, you have to improvise. So learning, the ultimate aim of learning is to generalize. And that's one of the hardest problems in neural networks. I can make a neural networks learn, but the ability to generalize. Generalize means what? I want to be able to classify objects that I did not see earlier. Humans have an extremely good ability to generalize. So to learn and generalize, these are the two goals of many AI-related problems. So today, AI largely refers to this biologically inspired approach. The theorem proving logical theorist approach still persists within the decision tree based approaches. Automatic theorem proving has reached a level of maturity. There are not too many people these days working in that logical approach. Many of them want to be able to mimic the biologically style approach. History of neural networks. In 1943, McCulloch and Pitcher, they proposed network of switching elements to mimic neurons in a human brain. Please understand, AI and human way of thinking are intimately associated with each other. So in 1957, Rosenblatt introduced the first neural network called perceptron, single neuron network. Then two Russian authors in 1971, they had the 8-layer network. 1971, at that time it was considered deep. The today's deep is much deeper, but considering the technology of 1971, in many circles is now believed that one of the earliest examples of deep neural networks at that time. Feed forward multi-layer design with that propagation became the order of the day. I don't know how many of you know about neural network. Neural network, from a mathematical perspective, this is essentially a least square problem. Why? I'm given a set of samples. I also know their association. This sample belongs to class A, this sample belongs to class B. So I would like to be able to feed the network with an input whose classification is known. The network consists of weights. I'm going to make the network make a decision. The network's decision is compared with a true label of the input. The error is computed. The error can be positive or negative. You compute the square of the error. You compute the sum of the square of the errors over all the inputs. I want to be able to adjust the weights of the neural network that goes to minimize the sum of the squared errors of the prediction. Mathematically speaking, it's a least square problem. It's a classification problem. How do I find, how to estimate the weights of the parameters? So what is a backpropagation algorithm? So you convert the learning problem into an optimization, minimization problem. Every minimization problem has to involve gradient of some kind. Backpropagation algorithm is a method for computing the gradient of the cost function, which is the sum of the square errors, summed over all inputs. This is, mathematically speaking, is no different from the linear regression, the quadratic regression, the exponential regression we all do in basic sciences. Fukushima used a hierarchical approach to neural network design. That's the first design of this convolutional neural network to extract features and recognize patterns. Today, we all talk about deep neural networks. What is the basic aspect of a deep neural network? Feature extraction. Please remember the objects, humans, features we talked about. So one of the fundamental needs of classification is to be able to identify features. If you give the features to the network and associate a class, I can force it to learn. What's the next level? Can I make the machine learn the features automatically by themselves? And that's what deep neural network is all about. So there is an aspect of convolutional neural network that is meant to learn the features automatically in the front part of the neural network. And with the chosen identified feature, the latter part of the network then tries to do the calculation of classification. Can separate the dog from the cat. How does it recognize the features of a cat from a dog? These are all the problems of great interest in deep neural networks. Then there's another aspect of the theory. Until recently, the neural network remained essentially an empirical approach. So computer scientists, theoretical computer scientists want to impart some theory into the learning process that happens in artificial neural network. They develop the theory of what's called PAC. PAC is provably approximately correct. It is provable. Provably correct, but provably correct approximately. For example, with a large probability, it is true. If you look at the other What do they say? Bombay will get 150 millimeters of rain the next 24 hours with a probability 0.9 or more. Look at the way we create forecast. Every forecast has two quantities. One is the level of the rain, another is the confidence of the prediction. If it is more than 80%, you better take an umbrella. If it's only greater than 30%, I don't know. Indian stock price is going to rise by 10% with a probability 0.95. Therefore, I'm trying to tell you, buy some stocks. Next week, there is a potential that the stock price may go down, so I would advise you to sell this trade tomorrow. So, when every prediction has to have two quantities. One is the level, and is the volatility. Volatility relates to how confident you are at the level that you have forecast. So that's what the probably approximately correct theory. And two Russian authors, then they came up with what's called BC dimension, Babin-Chermak dimension. And BC dimension is an intrinsic property of neural networks. Generally, people who are interested in application, they don't worry about these. And what the import of BC dimension? Using the BC dimension for a given architecture of the neural network, I can compute the minimum number of samples that I must use to train the network in order to guarantee the generalizability of results coming from that neural network. I want to emphasize that. So what is the challenge? I can train anything. I can train a dog. I can train a cat. I can train many things. But what is the ability to generalize? How do I capture the ability to generalize mathematically? How many inputs should it see in order to be able to have a general property of generalization? Is able to generalize it reasonably well. And those are fundamental aspects of the theoretical underpinnings of neural network, and that have been developed. I simply want to tell you that it used to be remain empirical. There's a lot of underlying theory have been developed over the past several years to guarantee the performance of neural network. We still don't know why it works. But I can guarantee if you give me this many number of samples, the output will be probably approximately. The evolution of AI, deep neural networks became a reality. Deep Blue, we have already talked about it as early as 1997. The Turing Award is supposed to be the Nobel Prize in computer science, went to the discovery of the modern deep neural networks. Today, GPU by NVIDIA, with this good parallel processing ability, is a very good platform to be able to simulate deep neural networks. Please understand, neural network these days, you can design a neural network by hardware. That's what Perceptron was all about. Macaron completes. They want to be able to build the machine with electronic components. Today, any machine is software related. So if you are interested in software implementation of neural network, GPU-based NVIDIA machines provide a very good platform. Today, AI is everywhere, in healthcare, in education, manufacturing, law, finance. I want to tell you about lawyers. Lawyers always solve an important inverse problem. There are three people in the world who you cannot lie to. You cannot lie to your spouse. You want to be married for too long. We all know that, right? You cannot lie to your doctor. He can't help you. You cannot lie to your lawyer. So the lawyer knows from the description he's going to have a tough time in arguing for you. But he wants to improve the probability of winning. So what is the inverse problem he's solving? Given these facts, if I want to be able to increase the probability of winning, how should I use the law to argue to maximize the probability of winning? That's an inverse problem. I want to think, we are not the only ones solving inverse problems. Many people, especially lawyers on the losing side, lawyers who know the case is weak, they always solve very intelligently in those problems. And concurrent developments in robotics. Robotics is an area of interdisciplinary nature. It involves mechanical, electrical, computer engineering. It involves computer vision. It uses tools from AI. Great advances have been made in medical surgery using robotics. Let's talk about driverless cars. Google and many others have invested tons of money in trying to develop driverless cars. Is driverless cars new? No. Autopilot for the airplane has been around for the past 50 years. The flight from Delhi to Chicago starts at 1:30 in the morning. You can't see anything. So the pilot using instruments and GPS, he gets to level 5, 32,000 feet, and then autopilot takes over. The pilot cannot leave the seat, but pretty much 1 hour into the flight, he's not flying, or she is not flying, autopilot's flying. So we know how to fly planes automatically. We also know how to drive cars automatically. That's the only problem. Pick up the road and go there. When you are up at 32,000, there is nothing. You are the king of the road. Hear everything. So what is the problem? What is the challenge? The sensors. Now what kind of sensors? Visual sensors won't cut it. Because the guy behind me is coming at a breakneck speed as if there's no tomorrow. So I need to be able to estimate his speed. I need Doppler radar. I need to estimate what is the speed at which my friend guy is moving. I need Doppler radar. I need Doppler radars to be able to estimate who are all coming from the sides. So how many Doppler radars do I need? How do I synthesize the information from each of these Doppler radar? How do I give all this information into a computer that makes decision? I will tell you how fast you need to make a decision. Yeah, suppose I have a 3-lane road. Suppose I assume everybody follows the rule, everybody is on a track. I've seen drivers within India, they will always straddle a lane. There will be a lane, but he will be driving on the lane marker. But you are supposed to go in the lane. So suppose everybody follows the rule, everybody is the lane. A lane is supposed to be 20 feet broad, let's assume. You are going at 60 miles an hour. 15 miles an hour is equal to 22 feet per second. I'm sure you all should know that. If you are traveling at 15 miles an hour, you are traveling at the rate of 22 feet per second. So if you are traveling at 60 miles an hour, 4 times 15, 4 times 28, 4 times 28 is what? 4 times 22, I'm sorry, 4 times 22, 88 feet. So in 1 second, a car moving at 60 miles an hour is traveling 88 feet per second. Suppose you take your mind off of 2 seconds. You're well over, and you have an angle. You are the other way. Accidents happen within a couple of seconds at 60 miles an hour. So why am I mentioning this? What is the time delay you have for the computer to make a decision? The decisions have to be made based on all these Doppler radars almost instantaneously, real-time computation. And that's where the challenge is. So Google researchers are trying to work on how to sense their neurons, what kind of inputs are useful, and how to integrate the sense measurements into a decision, and how fast can make the decision to be able to give to the autopilot to be able to avoid accident. And that problem is a pretty serious problem. It's a pretty serious problem. And why they are interested in the United States, much of the commerce happens through trucks. The truck driver makes anywhere from $70,000 to $90,000 a year. But truck drivers are in great demand. So they are trying to derive autopilots for trucking industry to be able to manage the shortage of truck drivers. That's it basically. So 2 models of learning in AI. One is called supervised learning, or learning with a supervised teacher. Sometimes the teacher himself may be probabilistic. I'm not sure. I know pretty much this, right? So what is the idea here? Given a finite set of input output, identify the system. That's an inverse problem. I told you the features and the label, how they force the machine to learn the labels. Given L label sample XILI, train artificial neural network to classify the input samples. Here, given N pairs XIYI, express Y as a function of X, least squares theory for model building. The ultimate goal relates to the ability to generalize, but act theory is helpful in this assessment. I already mentioned that. And what's called unsupervised learning, that's learning without a teacher. My piece in this dissertation of the Indian School of Science was on unsupervised learning. You have to make the algorithm process information by itself. What's the simple way to describe? I have two coins. I can pick the coin 1 or coin 2. If I pick coin 1 and toss, if it falls head, I get $1. If it falls tail, I have to give $1. It's like a gamble. Two machines, equal pair. So if I pull this lever, I get $1 with the probability P1. I have to pay $1 with the probability 1 minus P1. I pull the lever, probability P2, 1 minus P2. I don't know P1, P2. I'm a greedy person because that's the reason I went to the gambling house. How do I conduct experiments to be able to maximize my gain? So the algorithm was to maximize the instantaneous average gain asymptotically by conducting experiments. That was the kind of problem I worked on. And the neural network, they do image analysis, speech analysis, speaker recognition, all unsupervised. Time series analysis is essentially unsupervised learning. If I'm trying to model an accident temperature in Pune, you are given nothing. You have to build the model, everything from the data. Nobody guides you. You have to listen to the data based on autocorrelation function. So every time series analysis is an example of an unsupervised learning and data bank. The row smells the same by whatever name you call: AI, expert system, knowledge discovery, machine learning, pattern recognition, multivariate data analysis, data science with data analysis. Today we have come to call it data-centric AI. Computer scientists are very good in trying to invent new terminologies. So they're all different buzzwords. They are all related to what we now come to call as AI. I have a copy of the slide in this computer. Any one of you wants to have a copy, please talk to Pata or Jimmy. They'll be able to share that slides. So I would like to now distinguish between what is CS and what is data science, computer science, data science. Growth in computer science was driven by advances in discrete mathematics, theory of formal languages, algorithms, complexity theory, and hardware technology. Growth in data science, on the other hand, is propelled by advances in statistics, probability theory, applied mathematics, large-scale inverse problem, numerical simulation, and domain-specific knowledge. The domain-specific knowledge that separates computer science from data science. Data science in medicine, data science in geology, data science in planet science, data science in genomics, domain-specific data analysis is what data science is all about. Applications of AI, deep neural networks, they are everywhere. I'm sure you can quickly read it. Image recognition, visual art processing, and natural language processing. Today I was told that there are bots where you keep some keywords, it can write a. One of the challenges in computer science is if you teach a class for 150 students on programming, how do you make sure the programs, they don't plagiarize? How do you compare two programs, text processing? All of it make. So I need to be able to learn features of different programs to be able to. Then today, one of the online with the progress in online shopping, what is customer preference? How do they push products based on your past behavior? Recommender system. Develop good customer relations. Of course, bioinformatics. Bioinformatics, what is one of the challenging problems now. We know that many of the diseases like cancer are related heavily into the defects in the gene. We can associate the particular defect with a particular disease, then I can go back to find amendments to compensate. So new drug discovery in genomic analysis, that's a very highly specialized data science problem. Image restoration, I have a picture which is 500 years old. How do I try to extract features to be able to restore to bring it to good shape? So confluence of data science and AI both deal with solving a variety of inverse problems specific to various subdomains. The role and the importance of domain-specific knowledge is fundamental to the pursuit of data science. Both deal with big data. I argued already. Every data is a big data of its time. What's called big, it depends on big has no particular frame of reference. It depends on the technology. So big data training, dealing with big data training in deep neural networks, we need large volumes of data. TAP theory helpful to provide a lower bound and the number of samples needed to guarantee a certain level of performance. So in my view, some of you may differ, AI is a part of AI. Yes, AI is a part of data science. Data science has been around for a long time. AI came much more recently. The problems of AI, the questions of AI have a lot to do in common with statistics and other areas. So AI, in our view, is a part of the big umbrella called data science. Now, I would like to talk about some other issues, which is of generic interest in data science. Today, we use algorithms to make any decision and many decisions. So, still, the deep neural network-based approach lacks theory. Why it works, we still don't know to the intrinsic aspect. People are interested in trying to develop the theory. We are a long way from building causality theory using these devices. A deep neural network is a step towards realizing strong AI to create machine indistinguishable from humans. So what is a strong AI? A machine must be capable of doing exactly what human beings are capable of. But we don't have an all-encompassing solution yet. If you make decisions automatic, I need to make the decision processes transparent. In a court, there's no secret, everything is open. Because everything is open, we have confidence in what happens, even though we may be on the losing side. We did our level best, the lawyer did the very best thing he can do, but I did not have the facts on my side. So, transparency is very much needed. But if you automate the decision, how do you make the decision processes transparent to gain confidence from the public of the decisions that you make? That's the way to what's called democratizing AI. Democratizing AI means what? I need to be able to publish the decision-making programs to the access of the public. So this is the process by which I made the decision. But if you make it public, it is susceptible to be corrupted by crooked minds. Understand? Yeah, judge is human, I can't corrupt him. But if I'm trying to replace a judge by an algorithm, and if I publish that algorithm so that you know it is transparent and how I make the decision, the mischievous person can change it without others knowing it. So that's a problem. So democratizing the AI is important, but open access is subjected to malicious attacks. And more, neural network, deep neural network based decisions are very sensitive to variations, perturbations in the input, perturbations to malicious changes. If one person changes one weight in the deep neural network, things are going to go haywire. So they're very sensitive to malicious attacks. So with that, I would like to bring forth the need for automating decision based on algorithmic decision process, making it transparent, making it democratic, and at the same time being able to ensure the integrity of the process. These are some of the challenges that the AI community is now trying to contend with. Now I'm going to tell you a few references. A report on the future of statistics and statistical science in 2004 that tries to envision the growth in data science as early as 2004. These are very good reading, very beautiful, beautifully written papers talking about, musing about the future of data science. I already mentioned it to you. The presidential address, that's one data science. That tells you that data science is largely statistical. We are already seeing some of the attributes of that. Challenges in big data analysis in 2014. The last one is very interesting. Look at that. In 2017, the paper talks about 50 years of data science. I talked about 300 years of data science, right from Kepler. Are you with me? So I want you to not to be overblown by the buzzword data science. It's very fundamental. The way in which we have been doing business simply is a term very attractive that everybody tries to embrace it. And for the right reason. Why? Everything that we do in the world, I have given you umpteen examples to convince you that data science is a fundamental part of the way we do business, we make decisions, and so on. So more mathematically oriented references. The first one, Blum, Hopcroft, and Cannon. Cannon's applied mathematician working in Microsoft in Bangalore. Foundations of Data Science is a very good book, but it's a very tough book. To turn 2 pages, you need a tall cup of hot coffee and at least a couple of hours in front of it, and a notepad to be able to check everything. The next one is our book on data assimilation. Many of you may know that. I hope your library has a copy, right? Hey, buy the book, I'll get $2. Cambridge gives me $2 for every book they check. No, I'm kidding. Don't buy that, it's very expensive. If IITM library has it, you got it. The next one, Foundations of Big Data Analysis. I have a copy of the book. I can pass it on to you later. The 2021 is a very recent book, it's a thin book. It is quite mathematical, but extremely nice for a first course in data science. I will show it to you. The book published in 2003 by Vidyasagar, Learning and Generalization. This book is a very good book to understand the theory of pattern learning. Who controls the ability of the neural network to generalize? How can I maximize the ability of a neural network to generalize? What's the underlying theory? It's quite mathematical. It's probabilistic in nature. It's probabilistic in nature. But mathematics is absolutely beautiful. Yes, many of you are maybe interested in applying neural networks to problems in geosciences. Please understand, using the program in MATLAB, you can do many things. That's right. You can design many networks. But that's not enough. That's only a starting point. That's not. So if you're trying to write a thesis, applications of neural network to do something in geosciences, please, by all means, do it. But please try to take time to understand some of the mathematical aspects that help to guarantee the performances of that. That's very fundamental and important. There are a few other books, especially I want to talk about the second one, High Dimensional Statistic and Non-Asymptotic Viewpoint. It's a very good book that published very recently, and it largely concentrates on statistical analysis of big data. I'm going to tell you some of the coming attractions. The next talk is on where do big data come from? The third talk. The fourth talk is going to be mathematics of data analytics. In the mathematics of data analytics, I'm going to talk much about the challenges in high-dimensional data analysis, geometric structures of high-dimensional data and dimensional reduction. Look at the next book, High-Dimensional Probability Theory, an Introduction with Application to Data Science. That's a probability theory book whose title itself talks about application of data science is a good mathematically rigor treatment of applications of data science from a probabilistic perspective. I did not touch the social data analysis largely because of my training in engineering, but there's a whole world of social data analysis. How do you determine a story is a fake story? How do you decide two programs are plagiarized copy of one another? What is the percentage of plagiarism that presents in a paper when you submit the paper to a conference or a journal? You write papers, you send a paper to the reviewer. Does the reviewer know everything in the literature? It's impossible. So the journal itself, when you publish a paper, they produce a result. It looks like this paper has 17% of plagiarism. But they allow for the following. Every theorem has the same format. If this is given, then this is this. Then that's not plagiarism. But that's the way in which mathematics language is built. They are trying to analyze the content of it. What's the percentage overlap? So these are some of the problems. How do you distinguish a fake story from a real story? These are great problems of interest in social network analysis, social data science analysis, and there's a whole body of literature. And I have a copy of the book by Abu Saleh, 2021, that provides you a very nice background on the problems and challenges in that area. With that, let me stop here. I don't know how much time we have. 12:30.
Yeah.
12:30. If you don't mind, I can start the next lecture, go part of it, and then we can continue tomorrow. If not, if you have questions, I'll be delighted to take your question, but I don't want to waste your time. And I want to keep going. Any questions, please? Comments, questions?
Anybody can ask questions in between.
So how many of you, this view of data science is new? Raise your hand, please. Yeah, raise your hand. We always raise a hand like that. I mean, well, I wouldn't want to. Raise this hand, please. Good, thank you.
I'll ask you.
Of course, of course. I'll come down. I don't have to stay here.
Okay. So in minimum words, how do we differentiate the conventional data assimilation from this the data science that people are talking today?
Data assimilation, in my view, is a part of data science. You don't have to keep telling people that I'm doing data science when you do data assimilation. You don't have to tell people when you do prediction, I'm doing data science. You don't have to tell people I'm doing data science when you're doing estimation. You don't have to tell people I'm modeling when you do modeling. So in my view, collection of data, analyzing the properties of data to ward off and quality control of data. What are those? What are the outliers? They're missing data. That's all part of data analysis. Because we need to do all these things. That's part of pre-processing. And then from data to model. So each sub-processes have a particular terminology associated with it. But as I told you, cleaning data, modeling data, estimating the parameters of the model, making prediction, they're all parts of data science.
So if I ask data assimilation occupy how much percentage of volume in the entire data science? Can you tell some number?
He's trying to get me into trouble.
Yes, I mean that will help.
He's trying to get me. I can't assimilate, the percentage. But I can really tell you, these are parts. If the model creation is easy, for example, let's take the problem of estimating the gravity using the pendulum. You need to generate data, right? So what are the variables? The length of the string and the stopwatch to be able to measure the peak. Can you measure the length of the string accurately? Maybe millimeter accuracy. So what's the most difficult part?
Counting
the time for oscillation is very difficult. So your data is going to have errors. So you're going to have erroneous data, you're going to plot it. From the plot, you can quickly guess what the model is, the linear model, quadratic model, exponential model, logarithmic model. Those you can do quickly. So the percentage of time, that may be negligible. But you spend a lot of time in trying to decide, is it an exponential model or is it a quadratic model? Both increase, but exponential growth is more than the quadratic model. Logarithmic model also increasing. So if you are now, what do you need to do? You need to fit multiple models. So then, choice of model is easy. Estimating it takes more time. So it depends. But to me, if you did any one of these tasks, claiming data in what sense? Getting rid of the outliers, telling the missing data, data preparation. Please remember Gauss. Gauss, before he invented the least squares technique, he found out the data was ridden with errors. So he wanted to ascertain the quality of data that went into the process of assimilating. He didn't call it assimilating at that time. He said estimating. So he developed this bell-shaped curve. Observation errors are packed, are concentrated among the mean. Are concentrated, that it can take larger values. That it can take larger values. So if you are doing data cleaning, yes, you are doing a task which is of fundamental importance to further processing of data. Satellite data you may need to clean, radar data you may need to clean. Institute data you don't probably need to clean too much. So it depends on the kind of data that you're from. But to me, they're all parts of it. Good enough.
Yeah.
If anyone tries to ask you to assign a percentage, I don't think I know. It depends on the problem. It's a good question, but it depends on the problem.
Yeah, very true.
There are lots of method of artificial intelligence, but which method will be used for particular analysis? So how do I decide which method will be I choose?
That's no dictionary for that. That's no dictionary for that. Oh, absolutely. That's no dictionary for that. For example, I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example. In time series modeling, what is the way in which you start doing this time series? Given a data, first you need to be able to find the mean, subtract the mean, and then compute the covariance, then compute the autocorrelation structure. Autocorrelation structure, some autocorrelation structure will fall to zero very quickly. What is autocorrelation? Is today's weather may depend more on yesterday's weather. Today's weather may not affect 10 days after much. So for a shorter period, the correlation, more longer period correlation is less. So correlation is a measure of the memory in the process. Some processes have long memory. Some processes have a short memory. So looking at the rate at which it decreases, you have to decide whether AR1 model will fit, AR2 model will fit. So mathematically, we have cataloged the properties of several models and we have created the algorithm. You have one time series given to you, you compute the autocorrelation structure. You compare this structure with the algorithm. You see who are all the fellows who are very similar to that. You do a pattern recognition. You make a human judgment. You pick not one, two or three. This may be it, this may be it, this may be it. You don't believe any one. You have to believe in all. Because you don't know what the results and the power of each model is. Then you fit the data to each of the models, make predictions. And how do you compare predictions? So if we are given 1,000 data, use 800 data for training. The last 200 data is for testing. And then try to ascertain which model gives better prediction accuracy. Okay, here I want to tell you something. Oh, let me finish the previous question and come back. This multi-model based decision is very good. Why? Let's ask ourselves, why do you form committees? I'm sure IITM there are several committees, right? He's already laughing. Because I'm sure he is associated with so many committees. Why? The short answer is nobody wants to take responsibility. We can always blame the committee. But the real answer is the following. 2 people can make a better decision than 1. 5 people can make a better decision than 3. So this is way of covering if the decision is going to be bad. It's not my decision, the committee's decision. And also, more importantly, different people bring to committee different answers. You can find the better one. So I would say a priori, if I had the ability to say a priori, this will work, I would be making $1 million by now. Nobody knows. If anybody else don't believe, you do it, you experience it, you decide. Are you with me? Yes or no? Is it an aha? That's enough about it.
Another question, sir. The data science is already existing since long, but why it is now a hot topic in recent era?
Well, they didn't call it data
interested
science.
in data science in our field.
There's nothing wrong with abiding in the old concept, right? They didn't call it data science. As ages went on, as data science, what we call, became more and more popular, people started asking questions. What is this animal called data science? Is it new? So further inquiry into that question gives you an answer that it is not new. It's as old as it's new. That's all.
Does it giving better result than in normal numerical simulation, etc.? That's why it is recalling in our field or something else.
You can. To me, many things we do data is a part of data science. So my suggestion to you is don't worry about the label. Worry about the problem. Don't worry about the label. Worry about the problem and algorithm. If you are able to interpret the solutions and make sense in your own area, you got it by name. That's what I told you. The rose smells the same by whatever name you call. But if you count the name of data science, there are lots of people who say, wow, she's doing data science. Otherwise, they'll say, oh, she's simply doing statistics. Are you with me? So you can call it by any name, many names. Not that names are not important. You have to go with the flow. While you have to go with the flow, not to be totally sold to the idea that data science is new. That's okay. So I'm not asking you to change anything. Continue to do what you do. Whatever you did, you are doing some aspect of data science. That's important realization I would like to suggest to you. Are you there now? Thank you.
Sir, I just want to ask about the transparency you talked about. But I'm just starting to understand the statistics.
Articulate your question.
Yeah. Sir, actually, the basic one, like the decision tree, when you're like doing it with Python or something, so you will take one library like Sidekick, and then you just flip the model to the data. But error, like if you are running 2 times, you are getting 2 different errors, like standard error you are calculating. So how can we like rely on a model?
See, that's the choice of model. Same thing I talked about.
No. In the same model, I'm running again.
That's right. So you have to, okay, good. I have 10 questions. I have to build a decision tree. Which question do you pick first?
So,
What do you mean? Decision theoretic trees, you ask the questions sequentially. The second question you are going to ask is after the first question. The third question you are going to ask is after the first 2 questions. Suppose you try to build a tree by permuting the set of questions. Suppose you have 10 questions. How many different ways in which you can order 10 questions up to your 10? Each way of ordering, there's a tree.
but I don't know what is happening.
That's right. You have to compute this
Standard error, yeah.
and then you have to narrow down and then say, hey, the answer is not unique.
Yeah.
So that's where the committee comes in. This tree tells me this tree tells me this, this tree tells me this. Maybe I need to take a linear combination of the decisions. When he is the chair of the committee, he has 4 more people. His decision is always the final decision of the committee, not you in general. The committee's decision is a combination of the decisions of the members of the committee. Unless the committee is chaired by the big boss and nobody is willing to talk with the big boss. And the committee's decision is boss's decision. I think that happens in nature, right? That's right. Otherwise, what's the other alternative? In some committees, some members of the committee are just stubborn. They think what they think is the only thing that is right, nobody's decision is right, and they won't change. So how does the committee compromise in that case? Right, man? So these are questions that are not new to you. So what kind of decisions we make? That's called some kind of a compromise. Yeah, I will tell you what, many of you may already know this. In Miami, they have this hurricane forecasting center. In hurricane forecasting center, they run multiple models. Every scientist believes his or her model is the best model. Right? Come on, guys, we are all guilty of that. So what does the government say? I'm not going to pick the winners and losers. So you decision makers in Miami run about a dozen models. So you may have seen the position of the hurricane may be one, but the tracks, there will be a spaghetti of tracks. Each track depends on one model. So they make 24-hour forecast, 48-hour forecast, they display it on the screen. Then there's a panel of 5 people, humans, they interpret it. And the humans then take some linear combination of that to be able to create a forecast for public consumption. If you tell the people, it may go there, it may go here, it may go here, hell with it. I don't want to know your forecast, right? So for public consumption, we have to create a forecast that makes sense to the public. But to arrive at that, you run multiple models, then multiple experts interpret it, we come up with one conclusion. So what you talked about is nothing new, occurs in everyday life. I don't know. Because we don't know the truth. We don't know which model is closer to the truth. We have to take some kind of a linear combination of the others. Okay? But you have.
Yeah, just a small question. So I am not going into the integrity of data science. My question is slightly different, more philosophical. See, you mentioned this about the discovery of calculus, right? Calculus.
Yeah.
Yeah. So calculus by Leibniz as well as Newton concurrently. Now this theory of calculus was discovered not from data science, right? It's purely innovations, right? Yeah. So
it was driven by the need of the time.
Yeah. So here is my question. So in physics, what we see, for example, starting just uncertainty theory, there are many intuition based discovered breakthroughs which were not driven by data science, but definitely the whole domain of astronomy, astrophysics, from the beginning, from the Galileo or even before, by nature it is data driven, and also theory followed that. Data, kept on coming. More refined data kept on coming. More refined theories also kept on evolving. So the innovations in that particular field followed the data-driven science very obediently. Whereas in physics, I find, I've been a student of physics, so there, it was driven by many. So, for example, Bose-Einstein statistics. When Bose actually calculated this, he was not even aware of any accelerator or anything. Later on, people found out, okay, the particle of integral quantum number really followed Bose-Einstein statistics, the other way around. So my concern is, now, of course, atmospheric science, meteorology is a candidate where data-driven things work very well, like your stock markets and so on. But my point is, if we really motivate these young minds into data, I mean, they get too much fascinated. Whether is, you can anticipate. So whether we are, their ability to do something breakthrough or to innovate is going away, and we are completely we'll look forward to more and more data and more data, and we'll keep on developing that that. There's no harm in that. But question is then we may, I don't know. I mean,
I got it.
so that's my,
Sure. I think I have an answer for that.
yes.
I did not talk about how science gets discovered. The results in dying in science get discovered. Do we know how Ramanujan did his work? He proved theorem. He wrote the results of the theorem. Nobody knew. We are trying to give PhDs for people to write how Ramanujan may have thought. That's what he's talking about. Bose, probably Einstein, Ramanujan. Where their discovery is driven by data? No, intuition. I did not specifically talk about that because I don't think I have the wherewithal to talk about the essence of discovery in science. That was essentially the reason. So his example of Bose coming with his intuition, Ramanujan coming with his intuition, Einstein postulating that speed of light is constant. Where did it come from data? No, stroke of intuition. So that's under the line of activity. I just don't know how their minds work. It is simply my inability to understand those processes. I didn't touch on them, that's one reason. Secondly, the topic was data science. So I can find my attention only to those discoveries from data. But physics is also full of data-driven approaches, as Partha was mentioning. For example, the first atom model, my first degree is in physics. So first atom model, Thomson model. It didn't last too long. Why? If the electrons have to be rotating, they should lose energy. If they should lose energy, they will come spiral and then collapse into the nucleus. Then came the Bohr model. Then came a sequence of models. About 10 years ago, we had Higgs boson. They call God particles. So we don't know entirely about the atomic structure, but great advances have been made in the semiconductor industry based on the mass structure theory of solids. Are you with me? Based on Bohr's theory, Einstein wrote his paper on physics what's it called? Yeah, we all know what I'm talking about. Yeah, he got Nobel Prize for that, not for relativity. So there are lots of results in physics itself that are data driven. But what Partha is talking about, not data driven discoveries, but simply based on intuition. There are several of them. I don't know. I can reach the minds and the heights of Ramanujan's mind. What do you mean? So the point is well taken. I don't want you to be left with an idea. I'm sure you all know that every discovery comes from data analysis. Many, but there are few, and which we still don't know how to explain. But Fermat's last theorem, I hope you all know this, and he said that the space in my margin is not long enough for me to give you proof. That was an open problem for 150 years. Four-color conjecture in graph theory is an open problem for a little over 200 years. So how did these people enunciate the four-color conjecture, the Fermat's conjecture, so on and so forth? So there is an alternate side driven purely by intuition, and that's what he is emphasizing. Thank you. That's the other aspect of discovery. Thank you for that. Sure, definitely.
Should we continue or already close today? Today we can close.
We had announced between
11:30 to 12:30 the session. So
10 to 11, 11:30 to 12:30.
Right.
Is that
Yes.
the original announcement?
yeah,
And we started a little late, and tomorrow we'll start 10 sharp, please.
10 is a challenge.
The train will leave exactly at 10.
Yeah, we will move to Arivata Hall tomorrow.
We are going
For this audience, that's more appropriate.
smaller room, so we can see each other much better and interact much better. and,
He will be available in the.
it's already passed today.
Yeah.
Visitors room, you can have it.
Yeah.
So if anybody wants to.
Yeah, browser is available until Friday here. So if you want to interact with him, afternoons is free. Just let us know so we can fix a schedule with him.
Thank you all for coming and hopefully see you tomorrow.